Hello dear students, welcome to the third English literature class where we are going to begin with the third unit of your first flight, which is really important from your board's perspective. So let me tell you why this unit really matters, because from this particular unit questions are usually asked either in the form of MCQs, extract based questions, short questions, or sometimes even a long answer. So dear students, this unit will definitely help you gain at least 8 to 10 marks in your board exams if prepared properly. So let's buckle up for this session and dive deep into this particular unit, which has two subtitles like His First Flight and The Black Aeroplane respectively, which gives a beautiful description of the experiences of a young seagull and an experienced pilot. Alright dear students, so here we go. Before we begin our session, I would like to just tell you what we are going to cover in today's session, and let's have a look on screen. We are going to read about the author of these two lessons, and then we would be discussing the stories, including summary, theme, important message, important and expected questions for your exam, important PYQs as well. We'll be going through two different poems from the same unit. We'll also be going through multiple choice questions, short and long questions as well, along with some other important set of questions which have been asked in the paper previously. And then at last, towards the end of the session, we'll also have a small recapitulation of the entire topic as well. So here we go, and let's buckle up. So before we begin, I would suggest you to please keep a pen and paper in hand so that important points of the session can be jotted down. All right. And now that I would like to share some exam tips with you all, that the very first important point is that you need to take care of these 3 R's that you see on screen, which are as follows: read, relate, and respond. Whatever you read in your textbook, be it a poem or a prose, please remember to relate it to the context and then start writing your answers. Please analyze whatever you are reading, right? Comprehend whatever you are reading and then write accordingly. Take care of the word limit as well, because writing unnecessarily won't fetch you any extra marks. Alright, so please stick to the word limit, not the page count. And the last point that I just want to share with you all, please quote some words or phrases from the text that you are reading, be it a lesson, be it a prose or a poem, because this will definitely leave a lasting impression on the examiner. Yes, that this particular student has really read and has really prepared well for this examination, for this particular subject. Now, let's get started with these two stories. All right. So you have two stories right in front of you in your textbook. The first one is under the title His First Flight, which is written by Liam Flaherty, and you have the second lesson titled as The Black Aeroplane, written by Frederick Forsyth. All right. So these two give us the beautiful account of beautiful description of the experiences of young seagull and an experienced pilot. All right, dear students. So please keep this thing in mind. While we are reading these two lessons, you should note down each and every point that we would be discussing in this particular story. All right. So these two things, these two chapters just, include the elements of risk also, suspense, mystery that keep the interest of the readers intact. All right. The author of the first part, His First Flight, is Liam Flaherty, and the author of the second part is Frederick Forsyth. In the first part, you will come to know about the experience of a young seagull, a maiden seagull who is about to take his first flight, but he is actually afraid to take that flight because he thinks that his wings would not support him, and he even could not muster up courage to, take his flight, right? So eventually he does, although, right? In the second part of the story, it narrates the story of a man who is returning to his home, who is returning to England, who is in a hurry to return to England just in order to enjoy vacations, in order to enjoy his holidays with his family, in order to enjoy English breakfast with his family. So he takes his flight amid stormy weather. Now, let's get started with the very first title, the very first part, which is His First Flight, and I have prepared some pointers for you all that would definitely help you in understanding the story better. right? Please have a look at these plot pointers, because understanding the plot in terms of a prose lesson is really, really important. It's really crucial for all of us, right? So the young seagull is afraid to take his first flight despite seeing that his siblings had already learnt, right? So he fears his wing will not support him. This is the major reason why he cannot take his flight. This is a very important reason. So parents keep on upbraiding him, parents keep scolding him for this act of cowardice. Still, he is not able to take his flight, right? Hunger makes him weak and desperate as well. This hunger, he was so mad with hunger, which makes him weak and which makes him desperate, leading him to take a very desperate attempt in order to catch the prey that lay at her mother's feet, right? His mother tempted him in order to catch that piece of fish, right? Then he jumps towards the fish and falls. Instinctively, naturally, he starts flying. He takes his first flight in this particular manner and eventually gets successful in his flight, right? He gains confidence and flies happily with his family now. I hope you have understood these major pointers. So these pointers will definitely help you in just, preparing your last minute revision notes at the time of your exam. All right, here we go with the story. What really happens? The story is written by Liam O'Flaherty. It tells the story of a maiden seagull, a young seagull, an innocent seagull who wants to take his first flight, but he could not gather courage, or he could not muster up the courage to take that flight just because he thought that his wings would not support him, right? And he would ultimately die. So what happens? The story opens up when we see that he is sitting on the brink of a ledge. So what is the meaning of ledge? These are the terms that we need to remember. Ledge and brim. So this is the ledge, right? And this part is the brim. Got it? So the seagull is somewhere here, right? Who is unable to take his flight just because he was so scared, he was so afraid, and he thought his wings would not support him and ultimately he would die, right? So he could not take up that courage. So what's written here? Young seagull who is afraid to take his flight because he thought that his wings would not support him, and here when he had already seen the previous day that his siblings, his two elder brothers and his sister, had already learned how to take their flight and have got successful in learning the fine art of flying, swimming and catching their prey, right? So what happens? He's filled with fear and self-doubt, believing that his wings will not support him. So please make sure that you know this reason, just because he thought that his wings would not support him. All right. So then his parents even tried possible ways to teach him the fine art of flying, swimming and catch its prey, but he could not do so. As a result of which, parents got really annoyed, his parents got angry, and they moved to the opposite side on a bigger plateau along with his siblings, and they kept on upbraiding him, they kept on yelling at him, but despite their scoldings, despite their efforts, he could not fly, he could not take his first flight. The moment he starts making attempt to fly, he got unsuccessful just because he could not gather that courage, right? So what happens then? His parents even try impossible ways to make him fly. They scold him, threaten him to leave. Still, all efforts in vain, right? So, and encourage him to gather courage, but he's unable to overcome his fear of flight because he was so scared, right? So as time passes, hunger weakens him and make him so desperate. And when he was so hungry, he was so mad with hunger, but nobody was paying any attention to him because his family, his siblings had already moved to the opposite side on a bigger plateau, on the opposite cliff. Like, what is the cliff? What is the meaning of the cliff? The highest point of a mountain, right? So he watches his family flying joyfully, eating fish and just, enjoying moments together. And he was alone on the either side of the cliff, right? So now let us see. At last, his mother uses a very clever strategy because, when sometimes even nobody pays any attention to you, your mother can never turn her face around, right? So what happens? Her mother got an idea, and what she did, she had a piece of flesh that lay at her feet. What she did, just because nobody was paying any attention towards this seagull, mother just, had an idea. It's like she had a piece of fish. What she did, she flew, having it in her beak, inside her beak, and she tried to fly, closer to the seagull. But the moment the seagull came closer, just because he was so mad with hunger, just because he had not eaten anything since the previous night, but his mother was the only one who paid attention towards him, just because she knew this thing that my baby is hungry, right? So driven by intense hunger, the young seagull forgets his fear and jumps towards the fish. What happens all of a sudden? The moment his mother carried that piece of fish into her beak and she tried to fly towards him, she tried to just, come closer to the seagull. So he did not give any single thought and he just, took his flight. So in that moment, even what happened when the mother tried to come closer to him and when he just, tried to come on the brink this side, this was the moment he took his flight in order to catch that piece of fish, just because he was so mad with hunger. So what was the important factor? What was the motivational factor for the seagull? Just because he was so mad with hunger and maddened by it, he came closer and ultimately took his flight without even giving a second thought. All right. So what does this show? Whenever he was here on the brim and his mother might be somewhere at this point of time, so he rushed towards his mother, he flew, he flapped his wings and ultimately caught that piece of fish. As a result of which by this time he had already learnt how to take his flight. But what happened? In the next few seconds, he felt as if his heart would stop beating and he would die. And there was a vast stretch of sea below him. So he thought he's now going to die. But that terrified moment, that terror-stricken moment lasted only just for a minute and everything went normal afterwards. And then this is how he took his successful flight. All right. So now what happens? Filled with confidence and happiness, the young seagull flies freely with his family. So the same family, his siblings, his parents who were earlier upbraiding him, who were yelling at him, who were making fun of him just because he could not take his flight, he was not making any attempts to fly. Now they have gathered near him. His siblings also, his elder brothers, his sister, they also came closer. They also flew closer to him. His parents and everybody applauded him and everybody in the family appreciated his art of flying, right? So what happens then? The story beautifully conveys that fear and lack of self-belief hold us back, and once we take that first step of courage, nothing can stop us by any means. All right. So what is the very important thing that you learn here from this particular lesson? It's that courage and faith, right? So courage is guided by faith. Just because you need some motivation in your life, right? And let me tell you a very important thing. This is not just the story of this young seagull. This is the story of every student out there who is afraid to take that first step, just like the seagull was afraid to take. But the moment he took that step, just because he needed that motivation, he needed that piece of flesh, he needed that fish which was inside his mother's beak. So immediately he did not, without even giving a second thought, he flew closer to the mother and caught that piece of fish, right? And took his first flight eventually, right? Now, let us see the theme of the story, which is extremely important for all of us to understand. And yes, let me tell you that thematic questions are obviously asked. And if you just look at the previous 5 years question paper, questions are directly linked to the theme, message of the story or the poem, right? The central theme of the story is that overcoming fear is the most important thing and gaining confidence as well. The story revolves around the young seagull who was not able to gather courage, who was not able to muster up courage in order to just take his first flight. So you should understand that you should have faith in your abilities, and courage is guided by faith. And we should also understand that parents also should encourage children in order to have self-belief, the feeling of self-belief even, right? Despite the encouragement from his family, he hesitates and he kept on feeling insecure that his wings would not support him, definitely die, and because there was a vast stretch of sea, there was vast expanse of sea below him, and he thought he would eventually just fall below that and then he would die, right? So he realizes his potential and experiences the joy of flying. This theme highlights the importance of taking risks and growth that comes after facing one's fears. You might have already be aware of the term. It's like dar ke aage jeet hai. So be always ready to face obstacles, be always ready to face risk, fear in your life, right? Because we need to remember one most important thing, that in order to overcome fear, the only thing we need to fear is fear itself. All right, dear students. So now let us understand the most important message, that self-reliance, self-confidence is the most important thing in life, and that every parent should encourage their child to have that feeling of self-belief. There should not be any doubt in this. All right. So let's know this. The mother seagull persuades, she tries to convince the young one to get him learn his art of flying, his art of swimming and catching prey, just like his siblings did, right? So take the plunge and flaps his wings to fly away freely and independently. And once he did that, his parents really appreciated. So it's just that you need a motivational factor in your life to get successful. And what was that motivational factor for this young seagull? It was just because he was so mad with hunger, that piece of fish that laid at her mother's feet, she took that inside her beak and she flew closer to him. And the very moment the young seagull tried to come closer to his mother, she immediately withdrew so that he can take his flight out of that hunger, right? Now, attempt some objective-based questions, which are really, really important, and which is, I believe, is the favorite part of the students, right? So the question before you is, why was the seagull alone on his ledge? Why was the seagull alone? There can be multiple reasons, but the most appropriate reason is he liked isolation? Not at all. He had a quarrel with his family and friends? Not at all. He was innocent. It's just that he was not able to learn the art of flying, right? His family members had flown to the opposite hill, but he was afraid to fly? None of these. So what do you think is the most appropriate option here? Obviously this one, right? He could not take his first flight, and I told you to remember those two words, brim and ledge here, right? Next question on screen. What misbelief surrounded him while he tried to take the plunge? What is the meaning of plunge? What is the meaning of plunge? It's like taking this downward movement, right? This movement. He was afraid to take plunge because there was vast expanse of sea below him, and he thought the moment he will just, make an attempt to fly, he will eventually fall and die, right? So he felt certain that his wings would never support him. First, he thought that he would fall down the cliff. He thought that his siblings would push him from the backside. Not at all, and none of these. So you have these two options which seem appropriate, but you have to choose the best one. Which misbelief surrounded him? What was the misbelief that he had in his mind while he was trying to take that flight? So he thought he would fall down the cliff, or his wings would never support him. Definitely this, right? Because this was the main reason, just because he thought that his wings would not support him, as a result of which he will fall and die, right? So now the next question, why was he afraid? Again the same thing. It's just that there is just little twisting in the words, and so that you can remember, like this question, this particular idea can be asked in different ways, right? Because the whole idea revolves around one single reason, that he could not gather courage, and he thought that his wings would not support him, and despite making multiple attempts, he would eventually fall and die, right? So his wings had a little hole. Not at all. There was no problem with him. There was no problem with his wings. He could not muster up the courage. Definitely this. Let's read another part also. It was very hard to take flight from such a height. Not at all. Birds are meant to fly. Only his parents did not properly teach him to fly. His parents made multiple attempts. They tried to teach him, just like his siblings. They tried every single effort. They tried the best of everything in order to make him learn this art of flying, the art of skimming and catching their herring, right? That means the prey. Now, let's know these short questions which are generally asked from this particular chapter. Let's have a look at this. Briefly bring out the contrast between the young seagull initial attempts and his first successful flight. So first of all, let me tell you one more important thing, which keywords you need to remember, that he turned from a timid creature to a confident one. Remember this thing? Let's see how. The young seagull lacks courage and fears that his wings will not be able to support him, so he could not muster up that courage to take his flight. But what happened? But he's unable to recover from that fear. He's not able to overcome that fear. The family abandons him. The family leaves him. What is the meaning of this particular word? It means leaves him alone on the either side, and they moved onto a bigger plateau on the opposite side of the cliff, right? And it is only when he's starving from hunger, he was so mad with hunger and maddened by it, he immediately, without even giving a second thought, he tried to catch that piece of fish that was inside his mother's beak and took his flight eventually, right? So the fish in his mother's beak excites him and takes the first flight. He was initially terrified. I just told you this thing. When he just, came closer to his mother, when he caught that piece of fish, he was terrified. But this terror-stricken moment only lasted just for a minute. And immediately when he got to know that he got successful, and now he started, flapping his wings, and he flew outwards and downwards and began to soar higher in the sky, right? Now, family played a vital role in the flight of the young seagull. Very important question. If you get any question which is in the form of extended short one, right, there is a high possibility that this question can be asked. Let's see. The seagull's mother played a pivotal role, a very significant role. Or you may say a very crucial role in making the seagull, the young seagull, have his first successful flight, right? This pushed the bird to fly out of hunger. This is the most important part of the entire lesson, that how he was able to take his first flight, whether he got successful or not, and or who played a major part. Mother played a very important role in making this young seagull, in making the baby seagull take his first successful flight. Had the mother not gone closer to the young seagull with that piece of fish inside her beak, he would not have taken that flight, right? So the father ignored the coward seagull for his act of cowardice. His siblings also ignored him. But the moment he got successful in his flight, the whole family, all the family members, they applauded him, they appreciated him, and they flew closer to him, and they just enjoyed his flight. This made it feel worthless. The siblings flew around the seagull. They called him to fly too. This was a supportive gesture towards this scared brother. So now what happens, sometimes even we also face these kind of situations. Even sometimes when your mother or your parent or your father sometimes, get upset with you just because you are not doing something up to their expectations. It's just that this is their way of pushing you towards that particular level. This is another way of motivation. So whenever you feel into the same situation, you get into the same situation, so please don't get upset. Don't think that your parents don't love you. They love you unconditionally without any reason. It's just that they want to push us to do something better in life, just like we have seen in the case of the young seagull. Got it? Now, let's see another thing. What did the seagull feel when he finally flew? He was terrified. He was in a terror-stricken state that lasted just although for a minute, but then he got happy just because he was able to take his flight. He flew outwards and downwards by stretching his wings, and then he began to soar high, right? Let's see. The maiden seagull, the young seagull, just because he had just, recently learned how to take his flight, felt a great joy and confidence now. By the time he became a confident seagull, his fear disappeared and he felt proud and excited as he realized that he could just fly like the other birds as well, like his siblings, like his two elder brothers, like his sister as well, right? Now, he made his first flight. How was the flight important to the seagull? Exactly, it was important. The flight was extremely important for the seagull because it helped him find his self-confidence, which had earlier vanished, right? He was so underconfident. He was so afraid. He was so scared. He had that feeling of self-doubt because every time he was about to take his flight, he was making attempts in flying. So he thought that his wings would not support him. So he was underconfident and he could not gather that courage, right? So What happened the moment he took flight? He became courageous and he began to soar high. Now, the long question from this lesson, let's see, which is that how does the young seagull transform from a coward into a confident flyer? I told you this very thing, that this is the gist of the lesson, that if we compare the initial part of the lesson, if we compare the ending, the climax part, so do you see that there is a complete transformation in the seagull, right? What happens earlier, we find that in the initial part of the story, he was a timid creature, but towards the end, we find him becoming the confident one, right? Let's see how. The young seagull was initially full of fear and lacked confidence. And let me tell you one more important thing, dear students, that these questions along with these answers have been made available to you so that you can gauge an idea, you can analyze these, and you can just, take help from these answers just for your reference reasons, that how you should write effective answers in your board examination in order to fetch good marks, right? So you don't have to just copy and paste. Take help, take value points from these and try to frame your own answers. This will definitely help you in understanding, right? So the young seagull was initially full of fear and confidence. What happened? He was afraid that his wings would not support him. Again, the same reason around which the fear around which the whole fear of seagull revolves. So he refused to fly and stayed alone on the ledge while his family flew. His brothers, his sister, they had already learned how to fly. They had already learned the fine art of flying, swimming and catch their prey, just like his brother did, his elder brother did, right? When his mother tempted him with a piece of fish, he jumped to reach it, just because he was so mad with hunger, and this is how he took his first flight, right? His wings supported him at that time and he began to fly. This experience filled him with joy and confidence. Thus, the young seagull transformed from a very fearful and very scared bird into a very confident one. This is how you need to present your answer effectively. Got it? Now, let's begin with another interesting story under the subtitle The Black Aeroplane, which is written by Frederick Forsyth. So this story is going to be a very beautiful one from your text, because it deals with the first-hand experience of an experienced pilot who got stuck amid some unfavorable situation, because he was in a hurry to meet his family, to enjoy vacations, to enjoy holidays with his family, right? And this is the reason why he took some decision which he should not have taken, which he should have avoided. But if he should have avoided that decision, this story would not have been so interesting. So that we are going to start. All right. So here we go with this one. Remember, the writer of the particular story is Frederick Forsyth. All right. So now let us see. The Black Aeroplane. I'll tell you what happens in the story basically. Okay. The Black Aeroplane. So this word black has a very deep meaning. The word black. So it was a clear starry night. The author was flying his old Dakota and the number of the flight was DS-088. Please remember this thing. And the moon was coming up in the east side, and what happens, he was so excited, he was so hopeful in order to have good time with his family. He was so eager to have that English breakfast with his family, as a result of which he was so excited to fly towards England. And what happens, everything was clear, the sky was clear, right? So everything went well. What happened? What was the timing basically? It was somewhere around 1:30, as it is clearly mentioned in your textbook, that past 1 o'clock, which means the timing from 1 to 1:30 a.m. right? So it was the morning time, everything was clear, the sky was clear, it was starry night, right? And he was hoping to get good time with his family. After just, keeping his radio on, he tried to get in touch with the Paris control room. He told him about his own direction and was seeking directions in order to reach his destination, which was actually England. And the Paris control room immediately responded by instructing him to just, fly 12 degrees west. So everything was normal, everything was clear, the sky was completely clear, right? So he was on his way to England from Paris to England, right? So he switched over to the second and the last fuel tank and started flying. So everything was normal as I just told you. But what happened suddenly when Paris was left 150 kilometers behind, when it was 150 kilometers away, suddenly weather began to deteriorate, right? So what happened? He was confused actually, just because at the same time he had two thoughts. It's like he was so excited, so hopeful to meet his family and have good time with them, he wanted to enjoy English breakfast with his family. So when Paris was left 150 kilometer behind, so he decided eventually that he's not going to fly back to Paris. Now he'll fly straight towards England, right? He decided and he flew straight away into that stormy weather. So what happened when he got into that condition, into that stormy weather? So he saw huge cloud that was dark, huge black cloud that appeared to him like a dark mountain, like a big mountain, right? So he also got afraid, but at the same time, just because he was so excited to meet his family, and eventually decided that now I'll be just going through the stormy weather only, so no matter what. So what happened, his visibility got dampened and he was not able to see anything in that stormy weather amid those black clouds. So what happened, his equipments, his radio, everything stopped working all of a sudden. He tried to get in touch with the Paris control room, but he was not able to do so because his compass was the very first equipment that stopped working. It malfunctioned, right? What happened, it went on round and round. The needle got round and suddenly it stopped working, followed by other equipments inside the plane, and his radio also stopped working, as a result of which he also got in touch. He got lost somewhere amid those clouds and lost touch with the Paris control room. Got it? So let us see now what happened further. The narrator considers contacting Paris control room. Observing the lights of the large city ahead, he switched on the radio and communicated with the control room. He informed them about his own directions and he was seeking directions in order to reach his destination. That was England, as I just told you. His flight number was this, right? Remember, he was flying from Paris to England and he was already over France when he just saw that, when he saw those lights, those bright lights below. He tried to get in touch and he got to know his directions. He was asked to turn 12 degrees west in order to reach there. He switched over his second and the last fuel tank and he started flying. Everything was normal till he reached 150 kilometers, till he got 150 kilometers ahead, right? So what happened then? Narrator receives the prompt response. From prompt response means immediate response from Paris control room, who instructed him to just fly 12 degrees west, right? They verified the direction using the map and the compass, so which later on stopped working, right? His map, his compass, his radio and all other equipments inside the plane. So he switched to the last fuel tank, and the second one, you may call it, adjusted the Dakota's heading accordingly towards England. The narrator anticipates reaching England in time for breakfast. What is the meaning of in time? Before time. Right? When we say on time, this means you reach somewhere on time, on the specified time, but in time means before time, right? So feeling confident about the smooth and uncomplicated flight. So by this time, everything was normal, but when he went 150 kilometers away, when you flew 150 kilometers away from Paris, then weather began to deteriorate and the weather got stormy and he was stuck in that weather. He got confused at the same time, but eventually decided to be with his family, eventually decided to just fly in that weather only, right? So when he got into that weather, when he just took his plane in that stormy weather, those black clouds dampened his visibility, as a result of which he could not see anything, right? Everything was hazy. Now, while flying away from Paris approximately 150 kilometers behind, when Paris was left 150 kilometers behind, he encountered ominous storm clouds that resemble a massive black mountain, right? So what happened? Obstructing the sky ahead, realizing that they cannot fly over and did not have sufficient fuel, just because the plane was already switched on the second and the last fuel tank, right? So to navigate around to the north and south, the situation poses a challenge for the journey. What happened, just because by this time it was impossible for him to take any other direction, he could not even decide the north and south of it, right? So he thought that now he's going to be in a big difficulty. The time is going to be difficult. Despite considering turning back to Paris due to intimidating stormy weather, intimidating stormy cloud, unfavorable situation, he eventually decided that, just because he was so eager to, so desperate to meet his family and enjoy good time and have English breakfast with the family, he decided to go into that stormy weather. He decided to fly into that stormy weather only. So he's determined to reach home and have breakfast. Deciding to take the risk, they chose to fly the old Dakota directly into the storm. He decided eventually to take his flight directly into the storm, right? So what does this show, first of all, here? The author took the risk. Right? Remember this thing? Then, upon entering into the stormy cloud, amid that stormy weather, amid those clouds that looked like a big black mountain, what happened? The aircraft experienced turbulence. What does that mean? It started jumping and it started rolling, jumping and twisting in the air. The narrator, shocked, observes the compass spinning endlessly. What did I just tell you? The compass was the first thing that stopped. All of a sudden, it made the needle got circle and circle, and then it stopped taking rounds, and then it stopped working, rendering it useless. Other instruments also failed, and attempts to use the radio proved futile. Futile also means useless because it also stopped working. You should know these vocabulary and understand the meaning as well. So receiving a response from Paris control room, the situation became increasingly precarious as key navigational and communication tools ceased to function. Stopped functioning. Cease means stop. Stopped functioning, right? Everything was normal until he got into that stormy weather, and once he decided to take his flight amid those clouds, amidst those black clouds, which seemed like a big black mountain, right? All his equipments inside the plane stopped working, his compass, his radio, everything, right? His map also. So as a result of which he lost touch with the Paris control room and he could not see anything. So suddenly the author, or you can say the pilot of the DS-088, Old Dakota DS-088, suddenly came across another plane in that stormy weather amid those clouds, stormy clouds. So what happens? The mysterious pilot turns north. Now we are talking about the mysterious pilot, the flight, another flight that the author of the lesson sees in that weather, right? The mysterious pilot and the mysterious plane who was flying in the same weather ahead of him, right? So he got at least a bit relieved after watching another plane. So he thought to get in touch with him. He just, what happened all of a sudden, after some time when he saw that plane, when he saw that mysterious plane, the pilot of the mysterious plane signaled towards him. He waved his hand towards him and signaled him to follow for the next few minutes, right? So what happened? The pilot of the plane DS-088 just, listened to all the instructions of the mysterious plane pilot and followed his instructions just like an obedient child and flew along with him as per his instructions, right? So the mysterious plane turns north, guiding the narrator's Dakota for easier following. Just because in this stormy weather, the pilot of DS-088 was already confused and he did not know now, he could not find any directions. And in that stormy weather, when he saw another plane and when he saw the pilot who signaled him and who waved his hand towards him and asked him to follow, right? So he began to follow that mysterious plane and the pilot just like an obedient child, and so both the planes like this flew for half an hour at least, right, towards north direction. So what happens? Just because he knew that he was already flying on the second last tank and he thought, he was terrified at the fact that the fuel tank is going to be empty and the fuel is going to just last for the next 5 to 10 minutes only. But then After some time, he saw his pilot of the black plane or the mysterious aeroplane just, going down, was flying towards, or you can say flying downwards. He suddenly just, sensed a sigh of release, just because now he could see those two straight lines, lines of light, which made him clear that now he is about to land and there was a runway, right? So what was the most important, what was the next thing that he did when he landed the plane safely, and he just, took a sigh of relief, just now I'm going to land safely, right? So what happens? The mysterious pilot descends, prompting the narrator to follow suit through the storm, right? So I just told you that the pilot of the mysterious plane signaled towards him. He waved his hand and asked him to follow his instructions. So for the next few moments, the planes flew simultaneously together for half an hour, when after some time the pilot of DS-088 thought that now his fuel tank is going to be empty and his fuel would last only for 5 to 10 minutes. So but then in the meantime, he saw that the pilot, his co-pilot, you can say, pilot of the mysterious plane, is going downwards, is flying downwards, which made him clear that now he is about to reach runway and he is about to have a safe landing, right? So what happens then? Emerging from the clouds, the narrator spots a runway with two long lines of lights, which made him clear that it was a runway, signaling an airport. Feeling relieved, they look for the black aeroplane, but it has disappeared, leaving the sky empty, and the narrator could not locate it anywhere. By the time he was about to land his plane safely, just because he came out of that stormy weather, he came out of that stormy cloud, right? So what happened? The very next thing that he did, just he landed the plane safely, and coming out of that, he just rushed towards the control center, because this mysterious plane, which had and the pilot who had really helped him in cutting through that stormy weather, was nowhere to be seen. So what was the next thing that he did? He just went to the control room and he just inquired about the whereabouts of the plane, about the mysterious plane and the pilot as well, to which the lady at the control center looked at him in a very absurd manner and started laughing. And what was the reason? Let us see that. So it approached a woman in the control center to inquire about the location of the pilot. The woman looks at them strangely and burst into the laughter. So what happened? When he went to the control center, he asked his own whereabouts, right? He asked where he was and about the whereabouts of the mysterious plane that had vanished, that got disappeared, and the pilot as well, to which the lady replied that all the flights, owing to bad weather, all the flights had already been cancelled and his was the only plane that could be spotted on the radar. So can you imagine this thing? It's like two planes were flying simultaneously and one was helping the other one in order to just, come out of that stormy weather. And when this pilot of the old Dakota DS-088, when he landed the plane safely and when he rushed towards the control center just in order to know the whereabouts, in order to know about the pilot who really helped him, in order to thank him, and to which he was shocked to get that reply from the woman at the control center who told him that there was no other plane that could be spotted. His was the only plane because owing to the bad conditions of weather, all the flights had already been cancelled, right? So this mystery deepens as the identity of the pilot on the strange black plane who assisted without lights remains unknown. So this mystery remained unfolded for this pilot, for the author of the pilot of the DS-088, right? So we see various mysterious elements of risk, which makes this story so intriguing, just like the black color. So as I just told you that this story has a very special importance, and the black color has a very important relevance in the story. So what's that? Please keep this thing in mind. Alright, so please make sure that you know all these things. The theme of the black aeroplane revolves around the concepts of fear and the struggle against adversity. So what is the very important thing? What are the keywords that you should know from this lesson? It's about fear, isolation, and the struggle against adversity, against difficult situations, against obstacles, right? What did I just tell you? That the title of the story is Black Aeroplane, and in this title, color black has a very special role to play, has very important relevance, because just like the color black is known for its intriguing nature, it captures anybody's attention anywhere, right? Just like that, first of all, we should know that aeroplanes are generally not black. And here in this particular story, we are talking about the title as Black Aeroplane, and also the pilot, the plane which the pilot of DS-088 finds, when he finds a mysterious aeroplane, and the color of that mysterious plane is also black. So it binds the interest of the readers, right? Keeping the elements of risk, courage, right, and faith intact, just by telling that it makes a story, these all elements of risk and this makes a story so gripping, right? So remember this thing. Now, the pilot's initial fear transforms into a sense of hope as he follows the black aeroplane, which leads him to safety. Ultimately, the theme highlights importance of perseverance and the unexpected help that he received in the times of adversity, right? So what is that important thing that we learn from this lesson is courage is always guided by hope. Remember this thing, please. I'll write it here somewhere, that courage is guided by hope, right? So this pilot of DS-088 was courageous enough to face the situation, all right? So I just want you to remember this thing. Now, let us see another thing, MCQ based questions from this particular lesson. Let's have a look at that. So, let's read the question carefully. How was the weather when the pilot started flying back to England? You have 4 options on screen. Let us read. There were no clouds in the sky. Yes, there were no clouds. The sky was clear, the moon was coming up, and the stars were shining, all of these. So, just because all these 3 factors were there, so that means we should be quite understood that this is the most appropriate answer to our questions, all of these, right? Now, let's proceed towards the next question on screen. How would you describe the risk the narrator took? How would you describe that risk? Let's see. Calculated, impetus, unavoidable, or navigable. What do you think? What kind of risk the pilot of DS-088 took? Calculated, was it calculated? Did he already know this thing that he's going to face a challenge? No, it was impetus, it was unavoidable, it was navigable. Definitely the correct answer to this question is impetus, right? Something that he faced all of a sudden. Why do you think the woman in the control center laughed? She found the narrator funny. She thought his question preposterous. She thought he was teasing her. She was relieved the narrator was safe. Now, in these 4 options, you saw that there is a word preposterous. What does it mean? First of all, you should know the meaning of this word. If you don't know the meaning of these words, how you are able to choose the correct option then? So, it means something weird, or you may say absurd. As we've already read the text and we know that the lady in the control center, the woman in the control center was already laughing. He looked at the pilot, she looked at the pilot in the very strange manner and then started laughing also, just because she found the question asked by the pilot to be extremely funny, because there was no such flight, there was no other flight, and all the flights had already been cancelled owing to the bad weather conditions. So that's why she thought his question preposterous, which means weird or absurd. She thought he was teasing her. She was relieved the narrator was safe. So what do you think is the most appropriate option here to our question? So this is the most appropriate one. B part, this is the correct answer, right? Next, we see here reference to the context based question. As you see on screen, reference to the context based question are really important in terms of this lesson. If we talk about, let us have a look at that. The very first question, basically, read the following extracts and answer the questions. Let's see. Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. It was in this extract has been taken from your text only, textbook. It was impossible to see anything else outside the aeroplane. The whole plane jumped and twisted. What did I just tell you? It started jumping and twisting in the air just because nothing was visible, and this darkness had already dampened visibility, right? So I looked at the compass. First of all, compass, which stopped working, and then maps also, and then radio also, due to which he lost control with the Paris control room, and he cannot even discuss, he cannot even inform them, and he cannot even seek directions further, right? So the other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio, Paris control, can you hear me, can you hear me? But nobody could hear him. There was no answer. The radio was dead too. I had no radio, no compass. And let's see further now. The question, as soon as the pilot was inside the cloud, his ears got blocked, he choked with fear, his vision was obstructed, he was jumping up and down. What was happening? These two factors are not that much relevant. Now let us see these two options. His vision was obstructed as soon as the pilot was inside it. What happened? First of all, his vision got obstructed. Due to, and what was the reason? Due to no visibility. Got it? Now, the device in the aeroplane were malfunctioning, broken completely, giving wrong readings, stopped responding completely. So, everything stopped responding completely, including map, compass, and radio as well. Got it? So, please take a note of it. These questions, although MCQ based, but these tell you about the minute things in the lesson, minute information in the lesson, which is really, really crucial for you to understand. Next, the Paris Air Control did not reply to the pilot's call because why did the Paris Control did not reply or did not respond to the pilot's call? Because the Paris Control did not reply to the pilot's call because the radio was already dead and there was no transmission, no communication signal, no communication factor was there. As a result of which, the Paris control room and this pilot of the flight lost touch or lost contact with each other, as a result of which they could not share anything and he could not seek any help from there, right? Now, let's have a look at the short questions. Basically, I'll take the risk. What is the risk he's talking about? What is the risk that the pilot of DS-088 is talking about? Do you notice one thing? I have been time and again, I have been just, using this flight number again and again, so that you can memorize it. DS-088, Old Dakota, right? Why does the narrator take it? I'll take the risk, I'll take the risk. Which risk he's being talking about? He is talking about. He's talking about the risk of going into that stormy weather, of flying into that stormy weather and flying amid those clouds which seem like a big black mountain to him, right? So, just because he was so eager to meet his family. The pilot's decision making was clouded by his wish to meet his family. So, the pilot was so desperate to meet his family. So, his decision was clouded by this factor only, right? So, he so desperately wanted to be with his family and have breakfast with them. So, he had been dreaming of all day and he took the risk of not going back to Paris, not flying back to Paris. Instead, he decided to fly towards England, straight towards England, right? Now, what made the woman in the control center look at the narrator strangely? Why the woman at in the control center was looking in a very absurd manner, right? Let us have a look at this. The woman in the control center looked at the narrator, or you can say the pilot, Old Dakota, right? Strangely, because he asked about the black aeroplane. He was asking about that mysterious aeroplane whose pilot had really helped him coming out of that storm, coming out of that stormy weather, and had helped him reach the runway safely, right? According to the control center records, there was no such other plane that could be spotted through the radar. His was the only one, because she already told him that owing to bad weather conditions, all the flights had already been cancelled and yours was the only one that was flying, right? Now, let's have a long question, right? we are going to discuss. This is extremely important for you to understand, as you may at least get one long question from this particular unit sometimes. So motivation plays a very important role in our lives, and even if we talk about in taking risk in life and succeeding. Do you agree? We discuss with reference to the pilot of the Old Dakota and the young seagull. So this is one question, this is one factor where you can cover, or the examiner even can think of covering both the lessons, your understanding of both lessons. The first title, his first flight, and the second one being the black aeroplane. How it talks about motivation, one single factor which is extremely crucial in both the cases, right? So motivation is something, motivation is the only factor that has really pushed the young seagull in order to take his first flight, and motivation is the only factor that has helped this pilot of Old Dakota plane DA-088 in coming out of that stormy weather and reach his destination eventually. Let us see how. Yes, motivation gives us that push. Motivation is extremely important. What is motivating you to study here? Your exams, right? Isn't it? Because you want to prepare really well for your exams. That's why this is a very big motivational factor for all of you, that you are studying at this platform. You are just, attending all your classes, you are doing all your homeworks, practicing exam sheets, practicing previous year papers by this time also, just because you want your exam to go extremely well, right? And you want to really fetch good marks, that's why. So yes, motivation gives us that push to take up risk in life, isn't it? So we also think that if the other person can accomplish certain tasks, so can we. So if some other person, if some person can just, accomplish some task after taking some risk, because you need something in life that motivates you, right? So the role model success inspires us to take the first step and break the barriers in our mind. Although factors of motivation can be different, just like in case of seagull, we see mother was a very important creature who has really helped him, who has really helped the seagull, who has really pushed the seagull in order to catch that piece of fish. Otherwise, everything would have been in vain, right? In the lesson True Stories About Flying, we see the young seagull who is so scared of taking his first flight, eventually takes his flight just because he's so desperate. He was so mad with hunger, and maddened by it, he immediately rushed towards his mother. He took a flight. Although for the next few moments, he thought that as if his heart would stop beating. But that terror-stricken moment only lasted just for a minute, and suddenly he was successful. He got confident. Earlier he was timid, but then he became a confident one. Right? So this is how motivation plays a very important role in our lives, in everybody's lives. So thus we see that both of the characters take risk only because of the greatest motivating factor. Right? We just need a little push in our life. We just need little motivation in our life, and then definitely there is nothing that we cannot achieve. Right? So you should understand that first of all, courage is guided by faith. And based on these two stories, I told you to remember the keywords like courage, success, risk, mystery. All right, you should remember these terms so that you can frame a well written answer, right? Now, let us see another important question. From beginning to end, the story Black Aeroplane is a mystery. Yes, definitely, this story is mysterious, as the name suggests. The black aeroplane, and as we know that aeroplanes are generally not black, and that too when we are talking about a mysterious plane, which the pilot of Old Dakota sees in under mysterious circumstances. Like the color of the plane was also black, right? So just like the color of the importance of the color, just because we know the color is so intriguing, it catches anybody's attention. Whenever you just wear black top to bottom, and then you just go somewhere and you see that people generally notice you, right? Just because of the color that you wear. So black is known for its intriguing nature. Likewise, this story is also very intriguing, very gripping, which binds the interest of the readers. It arouses the curiosity among the readers to know the story, right, until the climax, until we know the climax, because the climax is not that easy, right? Had the climax been easy, the readers would have definitely gauged or definitely analyzed what is going to happen next, or the ending of the story. But that was actually very different, which we as readers cannot identify, right? So the story The Black Aeroplane by Frederick Forsyth is a mystery from beginning till end. It has all elements of mystery, all elements of risk and courage, which the pilot of the plane takes. So let us see now. So right from the start, the narrator faces a very dangerous situation where his plane gets caught amid that stormy weather. which, and that those clouds seem like black mountain. I have been telling you this thing, but eventually he decides, because he was so desperate, reason being he was so desperate to meet his family, to enjoy time with his family, to just enjoy those vacations with his family and enjoy good breakfast with this family. He was so eager and he decided to fly his plane into that stormy weather only, right? So throughout the story, the black plane sees almost like a supernatural force. For this pilot, what was the motivational factor? Just because he wanted to be with his family. This was the only motivational factor for him. Otherwise, he would have flown back to Paris only, right? So now let us see, like a supernatural force appearing at the right time to save the narrator from danger. So what do you think here? Was there any other plane? Yes, let us discuss this question being very, very important. Was there any plane? Actually, not at all. So you can just, remind him, you can just, understand this thing that there was no other plane. It was the pilot's own courage. It was the pilot's own belief, right, that took the shape of a human, and that plane which kept on guiding him throughout in coming out of that stormy weather. That's why I have been telling you this quote again and again, that courage is guided by faith. You know that when you just, have faith in that supernatural power, there is some divine power who keeps on guiding us, who keeps on supporting us, who keeps on helping us. There is nothing that we cannot achieve, right? So this plane or this pilot we are talking about the mysterious plane, might be a form that took shape, isn't it? So let us know. Throughout the story, the black plane seems almost like a supernatural force appearing at the right time to save the narrator from danger. The pilot of the black aeroplane never speaks and his identity remains unknown towards the end of the story. Till the ending of the story, even this mystery remains unfolded. Even this mystery remains this thing, this topic, this remains a mystery to the pilot of Old Dakota DS-08, that who was the one, who was the pilot who kept guiding him, which was the plane, where had it vanished, all things like that, right? Now, dear students, we are going to begin with something which is really, really, really interesting for all of us. As you see a beautiful visual on screen, so you can easily gauge an idea what we are going to read about and what we have in our box. How to Tell Wild Animals by Caroline Wells is a wonderful poem in your textbook that beautifully, vividly describes various wild animals in terms of their behavioral patterns, in terms of their distinctive physical features. So through this poem, we as readers will come to know about various distinctive differentiating features of different wild animals, and we will also learn to identify them through their different behavioral patterns as well. So I hope everybody is ready to dive deep into the poem. Let's get started. And again, I remind you that this particular poem, this beautiful poem, How to Tell Wild Animals, is written by Caroline Wells. Got it? Now, let's know what is there. First of all, you should understand that this particular poem is a beautiful blend of information and wit. I'm writing it for you here. It's a beautiful blend. Got it? It tells us about various features of different animals, and this poem also makes the reader aware how they should identify different animals through their voices, through their behavior patterns, right? So now, let us read the very first stanzas, and let me make it very clear. You should also remember this thing, that this poem consists of 6 beautiful stanzas, and each stanzas describe a different wild animal. Let us see now. If ever you should go by chance to the jungles in the east, if there should you to advance a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you, you are dying, you'll know it is the Asian lion, right? A beautiful depiction of which animal? Asian lion, right? So let's just look at the very first line. If ever you should go by chance. to the jungles in the east. So the poem opens up with a beautiful descriptions of the Asian lion and just tells the reader, if by any chance you happen to visit the jungles, eastern parts of jungles, eastern jungles, right? And there, if you just showed you to advance and if you just, go across it, and a large and tawny beast. What is the meaning of the word tawny here? It means yellowish brown colored animal. If you come across a large and a yellowish brown colored animal in the eastern parts of the jungle, right? In the eastern jungles, if he roars at you and you are dying, just the moment he starts roaring at you and you're about to die, remember it's none other than the Asian lion. Got it? Now, as I always tell you in all my classes that a poem is incomplete without its literary devices, without its figures of speech or poetic devices. So here we go with those devices as well. So do you notice any literary device here? In the very first stanza, I want you to understand one term. Let's see what's that. There is a term known as poetic license. Why I am telling you this? Being a literature student, you should know, as this question can also be asked in your board examination. Let us see. You see here the spelling of, if you have noticed this thing, it is written dying, right? Why it's written dying? Otherwise, we always know that the correct spelling of the word is, in the poem, it's written dying. Why? Because the poet has used this particular word. The poet has used a device which is called poetic license. The poet has taken that liberty with language, right? So what he does, the poet here alters the spelling of the word in order to create a musical effect, in order to create a rhythmic effect, in order to make it rhyme with the word lion. That's why he has altered the spelling of the word. Right? He has just, changed the spelling of a word just in order to create a musical or rhythmic effect so that the word rhymes, this dying rhymes with the word lion. Dying, lion, dying, lion. That's why he has altered the spelling. We call it poetic license in terms of literature. When a poet uses this device, so that means he has changed the spelling of certain words in order to create a rhythmic effect, right? So please remember this thing. Everybody should know this, right? So if you feel there is any other literary device that also will be seen, let's see, go by chance to jungles in the east, a large and tawny beast. So if he roars at you and you are dying, you'll know it is the Asian lion. Got it? Now, you have already got to know poetic license when he alters the spelling of the few words. Got it? So please make sure that you know all these things. Terms like poetic license, terms like these, right? Now, the poet explains how to identify wild animals if we meet them in the jungle, especially in the eastern parts. What happens? He says that if a large yellow animal comes towards you and eats you, if he roars at you, just remember that it must be an Asian lion, right? So if he starts roaring at you, remember it's none other than the Asian lion, right? The poet uses humor to make learning very, very interesting. And let me tell you one more important thing, that the tone of the poem is humorous and very light-hearted. Right? Remember this thing, please. Now, or if sometime when roaming around, a noble wild beast greets you with black stripes on a yellow ground, just notice if he eats you. This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. Very, very important stanza. Very, very important. Let us see how. First of all, let us have a look at the literary device. First of all, there is R, sound is getting repeated. So we see there is alliteration. All right. Or if sometime when roaming around, when you are wandering, when you are roaming in some forest, a noble wild beast greets you. Do you think which word has been used here? Noble. How can a wild beast be noble? So which literary device have we used here? Any idea? As we have already done it in the previous poem as well, you should be in a position to answer this question. I'm leaving it for you and we would be discussing in the concluding part, right? So in the meantime, just use your brain and tell me. You can mention even in the comment section if you know this. Noble wild beast greets you. How can a wild beast be noble? Right? So now, what black stripes on a yellow ground? As you really notice here, these black stripes, right? This is another distinctive feature of this particular animal. That means the Bengal tiger we are talking about, right? Just notice if he eats you. Now, there is irony as well. There is irony in this. What if the same extract is being asked? So at least you will be in a position to know to answer every question related to this particular extract, right? This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. Now, as we have already read these two stanzas, we should be also in a position to answer the rhyme scheme, which is round, you, ground. So this part has A, B, C and C. So the whole rhyme scheme is A, B, C, C. Got it? Rhyme scheme is A, B, C, C. Now let us know. If sometime you are roaming somewhere in the jungle and you come across an animal that creates your noble wild beast, there is an with black stripes on a yellow ground, and what is the physical trait of this? How would you just differentiate it from other animals? As because a wild animal is different from the other one in terms of physical appearance and behavioral pattern. How would you identify the Bengal tiger? You see the black stripes on its yellow skin, right? And this simple rule will help you learn. What is that simple rule that you need to learn in order to just identify a Bengal tiger? What's that? Very interesting. The Bengal tiger to discern. If you come across a wild beast who has yellow skin and just like this black stripes on its body, if he just pounces on you, if he's ready to eat you, definitely you don't have to know anything else. You just need to remember that it's none other than the Bengal tiger, right? So why irony has been used here? This statement is completely ironical, because do you think somebody would keep his or her life at stake, at risk, in order to just know that whether the particular creature, whether the particular animal is a Bengal tiger? Not at all. That's why there is irony in this particular line, right? So, the Bengal tiger to discern. What is the meaning of the word discern? It means to recognize. To recognize. You should know this, right? So, what is that particular thing? And one more important thing, do you find any other example of any other poetic device here? You see you word has been repeated. Here we have you. Here also, right? So it shows that there is repetition. Repetition. Got it? I hope that is quite clear to all of you. Now, let us see another one. In this stanza, the poet talks about a tiger. He says that if the animal attacks you, so remember that it's none other than the Bengal tiger. But as I just told you, there is irony in this particular stanza, in this particular line, when it shows ki if you need to just really identify a Bengal tiger, if he eats you, and we are not in a position at this point of time even. Just think it's very natural that nobody will put his or her life at stake just to know whether the particular animal is a Bengal tiger or not, right? So this is quite amusing to know. Now, another stanza. If wandering further, a beast you view, whose hide with hide spots is peppered. Now we are talking about the third animal. What's that? As soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it is the leopard. 'Twill good, no good to roar with pain, he'll only leap and leap again. Now notice again one thing, the spelling of the word. lep, and here lep and lep. So now you can easily guess which word I'm going to talk about, which term I'm going to talk about. I'm again going to talk about poetic license. I am going to talk about poetic license because the poet has altered the spelling of, instead of writing L-E-A-P-T, this is the correct spelling, but he writes this. And lep and lep again, just to create a rhythmic effect, just to create a rhyme effect, right? Just because to make it rhyme with the word leopard, right? Lep, lep, lep. So, if strolling forth a beast you view, whose hide with spots is peppered, who has salt and pepper like spots. Salt and pepper pattern. Salt and pepper pattern. Just please show this. See this? Got it? So, whose hide with spots is peppered, who has these spots on its body. These spots on its body, right? As soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it's the leopard. So, would you wait for an animal to just leap on you? Not at all. It will no good to roar with pain. He'll only leap and leap again. So what is the very important feature of this particular wild animal, that is leopard, that we are talking about? So if he leaps on you and you just, you're praying to God and you just have, the animal is not going to show any mercy on you, right? It will do no good to you, right? It will not leave you at all until you are starved to death, right? So what the animal is going to do, he'll leap on you, he'll leap and leap again, it is not going to show any mercy to you, he'll simply eat you, right? He'll simply pounce on you, and even if you are dying with pain, it is not going to show you any mercy. So remember, if you come across any such wild beast, remember it's none other than the leopard, right? Whose spots is peppered. Now again, if we talk about the rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B, C, C. Got it? So I hope this is quite clear to all of you out there, right? Now, let us have a look at the explanation. Now, the poet describes a leopard. If an animal jumps on you silently, and if he pounces on you, and if he just try to eat you up, and it is not going to show you any mercy, even if you are dying, if you are just crying with pain, it is not going to show you any mercy. It will simply eat you, right, and will not leave any crumbs. The poet shows that a leopard is swift, silent, and dangerous. Got it? Now, let's see another stanza. So we have talked about three distinctive features of three wild animals. First being the Asian lion. If you visit the eastern jungles, you'll find the Asian lion there. And the second one, if you come across a wild and tawny beast, noble beast, we are talking about the Bengal tiger. And then if we are talking about the leopard, who has salt and peppered pattern on its skin, that means he'll simply leap on you and will not leave you in at any cost. Even if you're dying with pain, it is not going to show you any mercy. So remember that it's none other than the leopard. Now we are going to talk about the bear. And a bear is known for its hugs, its caressing nature, right? Caress is the word which is being associated with love, feelings, right? With emotions. Let us see. When you are walking around your yard, you meet a creature there who hugs you very, very hard. Again, we have seen words like very, very, which shows there is repetition here. Right? Don't forget to mention poetic license if you see that there is any alteration in the spellings. Be sure it's a bear. If you have any doubts, I guess he'll give you just one more caress. So again, the same thing. Whenever you just come across any animal while walking in the yard, you meet a creature there who hugs you. And a bear is known for its hug, right? A bear gives you a strong hug. A bear is known to embrace you, right, through hugging. So be sure it's a bear. And still, if you have any doubt, if you are not able to identify such animal, definitely it is going to give you another caress. Definitely it is going to give you another strong embrace, so that you are left nowhere, right? So the poet says, if you have any doubt while walking in the yard, if you come across an animal and who gives you a hug, who gives you a tight hug, and we know that a bear's hug is that strong enough, that is enough for you to die even. That is enough to make you go, right? So if you ever, if you still you feel that you have any doubt left in your mind, in the meantime, he'll give you another caress, he'll give you another strong hug, another strong embrace, so you will ultimately die. Got it? Now let's see this. The poet talks about the bear. If you see an animal that hugs you very, very tightly, right? So the word hug is used humorously because bears can be deadly. Got it? So I hope this is quite understood. Now we are coming towards the fifth stanza, which is actually very, very interesting and very, very humorous. And let me tell you one important thing, that from these two stanzas, frequently questions are being asked in your board exams. So this extract and the extract that we would be reading after this one, the last one, is really important from board's point of view, because even in the last year's question paper, there was a direct extract from this particular poem about the chameleon that we would be seeing. Though to distinguish beasts of prey, a novice might nonplus. Again, there is poetic license, right? So now you see the crocodile you always may tell from the hyenas thus. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they're crocodiles. So in this particular stanza, what the poet has done, the poet has clearly and beautifully differentiated two animals. One is crocodile and other one is hyena. And what is that distinctive, what is that peculiar feature which makes them two different? Let's see that. Though to distinguish beasts of prey, a novice might nonplus. Otherwise, the correct spelling would be, the correct sentence form that would be, ideally it should be a novice might be nonplussed, but here the poet has used nonplus in order to create a, again I'll tell you that rhythmic effect, so that it can rhyme with other words, other lines as well. The crocodile you always may tell from the hyenas thus. How you are going to tell the difference between a hyena and a crocodile? Because while attacking its prey, a hyena would always keep a smiling face, whereas a crocodile is known worldwide for shedding false tears, right, while attacking its prey. So this is the major difference. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they are crocodiles. Again, the rhyme scheme is same, but the poet has used a revised poetic license in order to alter the certain words, which in order to create a rhythmic and musical effect in the poem. So let's see this as well. Here we see alliteration, NN, got it? Now, the stanza describes the hyena and the crocodile. A hyena is always seen laughing, so it can be identified by its laughter. Right? A crocodile has a wide smile and looks harmless, but it is actually very, very dangerous. And what is that peculiar trait which makes them different? It's like a crocodile always shed false tears. A crocodile always shed shedding false tears. Got it? So a crocodile is known for shedding false tears. So please remember this thing. Now let's see another stanza which is extremely, extremely important from your board's point of view, because this is the particular stanza that has been asked in the previous year question paper directly. So let's mark it very, very important first of all. And let's see what's written here. The true chameleon is small, a lizard sort of thing. So now we are going to discuss a very different and important animal, that's chameleon, right? It's a lizard sort of thing that looks just like a lizard, hasn't any ears at all and not a single wing. So this particular animal does not have any ears and wing as well. If there is nothing on the tree, it's the chameleon you see. These two last lines are very, very important because they were also asked in certain question paper 3 years ago, right? So let's discuss each and every word and each and every line. First of all, you should know the rhyme scheme of the poem, as we have been discussing in each and every stanza, which is small thing, all wing, tree, sea. So this makes it clear that the rhyme scheme of the poem is A, B, A, B, C, C. I'm writing it here for you again. A, B, and C, C. So this is the rhyme scheme of the poem. Now let us understand. The true chameleon is small. It's a very small creature that looks like a lizard, but it does not have any ears, it does not have any wings, right? And not a single wing. If there is nothing on the tree, there is the chameleon you see. First of all, you should remember one literary device, which is paradox and irony as well. Why? In these two lines, you can clearly see what is written. If there is nothing on the tree, so when there is nothing, how can somebody see something? So when there is nothing in that could be seen, so it's written at last, you see. So this creates a feeling of paradox. And what is paradox? When you see that the surface meaning is totally different from the underlying meaning, when you see that a statement contradicts itself, but as we study deeper, we know that the statement is entirely true, right? So it means what? If there is nothing on the tree, then definitely you will find a chameleon, just because a chameleon is already known worldwide for its ability to camouflage, which means change its color and blend itself according to the surroundings, right? Now, the poet says that the next is chameleon, which is a very small creature and it looks just like that of a lizard, and it does not have any wings, it does not have any ears. What it does, and if you see that there is a paradox there, if you see there is nothing on the tree, definitely remember this thing, that there must be a chameleon, because a chameleon is known for its ability, as I just told you, I repeat, its ability to blend itself with the surroundings, its ability to camouflage, right? So let's see what is written here. Moreover, she says that chameleon has the ability to change its color and blend itself with the surroundings. Therefore, if you see a tree and find nothing on it, it must be a chameleon sitting on it, just because it can change its color according to the surface it sits on. So that's why if you don't see, remember there must be some chameleon only, right? So now, what is the underlying theme? So as I just told you that this is very, very important for you to understand. You see that the poem consists of 6 different vivid stanzas that tells us the description of 6 different wild animals. In the first stanza, we have seen that the Asian lion is being described, that if you visit to the eastern parts of the jungle. In the second stanza, if you come across a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you, if you just come across a tawny beast, remember it's the Bengal tiger. Then in the third stanza, we got to know about the leopard who has salt and peppered patterns on the skin. Then in the fourth stanza, we got to know about the bear who can give you a caress, and that is enough, more than enough to strangle you to death, right? Then in the fifth stanza, we got to know the 2 distinctive features of a crocodile and hyena. If it smiles at you, remember it's a hyena, and if it attacks you with shedding tears, remember it's a crocodile, right? And then in the last stanza, we got to know about the chameleon, which is a lizard sort of thing, who is known for the creature which is known for its ability to camouflage, or you can say change its color according to the surroundings. Got it? Now we got to know the theme of the poem, which is entirely different from rest of the lessons that we have already studied. What's that? Let's have a look at that. The theme of the poem is a description of some distinguishing or distinctive features of different wild animals. The poet presents very briefly, very simply, and in a very crisp manner about some physical features and behavioral traits or patterns like Asian lion, Bengal tiger, leopard, bear, hyena, crocodile, and a chameleon. Although the poet gives accurate details of these beasts, she does not make the descriptions dull and dry. What did I tell you in the very beginning while starting this particular piece, beautiful creation? I told you that the poem is written in a very light-hearted manner, and the poet is just very humorously giving us all the descriptions. So you need to remember these terms, like the poem is humorous, the tone is quite light, right? Which just makes, and the poet through this particular poem makes the reader aware of the distinctive features of different wild animals. Now, what is that important message that the poet conveys through this poem? Let's know that. The poem contains a very powerful message that nature has provided all creature with its distinctive physical and behavioral traits. Each living being is unique. Each animal is unique in its own term, just like we have seen in this particular poem. Every animal has a distinct physical feature which sets it apart from other animals, from the rest of the animals. These peculiarities are the identification features of these animals. A person, if aware of these distinctive features, may easily recognize each and every animal. But even if you don't know, if you are not able to do it, the writer has tried to, the poet has already tried to make us understand. Now, just because you may not get a longer question from this, but we can easily, assess one thing. It's like in the previous 3 years question paper, there was no such long question that was asked from this particular lesson. So this time the board may ask you. There is lesser possibility of it, but you should also know the entire poem. So now we are going to discuss these extract based questions. Let's have a look at this. There is an extract right in front of you, right? On the basis of this, you need to remember a noble wild beast. There is irony, there is paradox, and there is oxymoron as well in the same word, noble wild. Remember this thing, please. How can a wild beast be noble? So you can say there is an oxymoron also. There is oxymoron as a literary device that has been used, right? And there is irony also. There is irony. How can a wild beast be noble, right? So who is the noble wild beast that we are talking about? The noble wild beast is the Bengal tiger. And what is the speciality of this animal, the Bengal tiger? What is the speciality of this Bengal tiger? That on a yellow ground clearly refers to the one that is large and tawny. Beast. Got it? Now, state whether the following statement is true or false. The extract helps us to identify a Royal Bengal tiger. True. It has been clearly mentioned in the stanza, if you come across a noble wild beast, right, who has or which has what? This physical appearance, the one who is large and tawny, yellowish brown colored one, right? Now, in the given lines, what effect does the poet create? Irony, terror, sympathy, criticism. What do you think? There is irony, there is not terror, right? The poet is making the readers aware of the distinctive features, right? It's not trying to create she's not trying to create any terror among the people, not sympathize, right? She's not sympathizing with the readers even, and she's not even criticizing. In a very light-hearted tone, in a very light manner, in a very humorous manner, she's just, describing the distinctive features of each and every wild animal, so many wild animals, in terms of their physical appearance and behavioral patterns, right? Now, if there is nothing on the tree, it's the chameleon. You see, I told you that the last stanza is extremely, extremely important, and please mark my words that you'll definitely get a question from this, an extract based question, especially from this particular poem. Which animal is referred to here? If there is nothing, we see the chameleon, who is a lizard sort of thing, and who is known for its ability to camouflage and blend itself with the surroundings. So why does the poet say nothing on the tree? Nothing on the tree. And there would be chameleon on this, right? So even if you find nothing on the tree, there must be a chameleon. Known for its and surroundings. Got it? Now, which characteristic of the animal is highlighted here? Again, camouflaging and its ability to change its color. Now, which poetic device has been used in these lines? Paradox is something which has been used, and time and again I have been telling you this literary device as a part so that you can easily memorize it. Paradox, paradox and paradox, where let us try to understand the meaning. It means the statement seems contradicting itself, but as we study the deeper meaning of the statement, we find it very true. Let us see. It seems contradictory that there is a chameleon when there is nothing on the tree. It is true one fails to detect the chameleon because it hides its presence by blending itself with the surroundings. Got it? So I hope this is quite clear, and I hope I have tried to make it simpler and understandable for you all. So now let's proceed towards the short questions of the poem, which are not many. So let's dive deep into these questions. What is the famous saying associated with the crocodiles and what does it mean? Very simple. I have already just, tried to make you learn the difference between the crocodile and the hyena. If it attacks on its prey, with a smiling face, remember it's a hyena, and if it starts shedding tears, remember it's a crocodile, and this is what is written here, right? So when somebody even says, don't show your crocodile tears, that means don't show your false tears to me in order to just convince somebody or in order to just persuade somebody. Now, if he roars at you, you are dying, you'll know it is the Asian lion. Comment on the irony of the quote of the poem How to Tell Wild Animals by Caroline Wells. Remember the name? The irony in the lesson is that no person would want to identify the beast like this, just because you will not keep your life at stake in order to just know whether the animal is actually an Asian lion. You'll not put your life, nobody is going to do that even, right? So if we ever go to the jungles in the eastern parts, right, from close quarters, we may be attacked by the wild animals. In that case, we may not be alive to know whether the animal is actually the Asian lion or not. So please, it's a suggestion to all of you to never try this thing just in order to know this animal, whether it's an Asian lion or not. Please don't put your life at stake or at risk, right? So how can you identify the Asian lion and the Bengal tiger? Very, very simple and very important question at the same time. If you visit the eastern jungles, right? So remember, if you just, are wandering, if you're roaming in the eastern jungles and if you come across a beast there, remember it's the Asian lion. At the same time, what is a peculiar feature of a Bengal tiger? What's that? He's large and tawny beast with different patterns on the skin, right? On the other hand, the Bengal tiger has black stripes on its yellow color body. It silently attacks its prey, and it is not going to show you any mercy at all. Even if you are just, dying with pain, if you are crying with excruciating pain, it is not going to show you any mercy, and it is simply going to eat you up, right? Now, why does the poet say that a bear's hug may confuse a novice? What is the meaning of a novice? A beginner, you may call, or an amateur. A beginner who has little knowledge about things or about animals or people, right? It is the tendency of a bear to kill its victim by embracing or by giving a strong hug that is enough to strangle you to death, right? So he hugs the victim so tight that he usually dies. But a novice who does not know the ways of a bear, who does not know the ways of a bear, how can he hug and how can he embrace so that you die? Eventually, he may think that it is a loving embrace. So if the person does not have much knowledge, does not have adequate knowledge of these animals, of these, if this peculiarity about the bear, how he is going to understand that if a bear starts coming to you, towards you, and if he starts caressing you, you can ultimately die, right? Now, last but not the least, if we talk about particularly this poem, we are coming towards the long question. Let us have a look at this. Every creature possesses a unique characteristic that defines it, and this trait is closely linked to its nature. So this question will help you understand the peculiarities of each and every animal that we have read in the entire course of the poem. So this question will make you cover all the poems in one answer only. Let's read it out. In the poem How to Tell Wild Animals, Caroline Wells, the poet, shows that every animal has a special unique feature which help us to identify it. For example, the Bengal tiger is recognized by its black stripes, the lion by its loud roar, the chameleon by its ability to camouflage, to ability to blend itself with the surroundings, hyena with its smiles, right? And crocodile with its false tears. These characteristics are closely linked to each animal's nature and behavior. By describing these traits humorously in a very light-hearted manner, the poet teaches readers to notice and understand the uniqueness of each and every creature, right? This shows that all living beings have special qualities, and every living being on this earth has peculiar features, has unique features, which makes one wild animal different from other animal, right? So this you should know. So I hope the poem is quite clear to you till this point of time. So dear students, now we are going to start that particular poem from your textbook, which is going to change your overall perspective towards life, and it's none other than the ball poem written by John Berryman. So dear students, keep this thing in mind that this poem particularly deals with a very insignificant moment in a boy's life that completely changed his outlook towards life and prepares him gradually to face the harshest realities, in fact, right? So let's dive deep into this interesting poem. So let's see what is there in it. So the poem is about the miserable condition of a boy who is mourning over the loss of his ball, right? So you see here, ball is very important. It is used as a symbol also, or you can say it is used as a metaphor as well. Got it? Not knowing what to do, he feels shattered, he feels confused at the same time. He is so overwhelmed at the loss of his ball, because his ball has a very wider connotation here. Let's see. The poet sees the ball going down the street into the water. This tells us about the setting of the poem. Where is the setting? Near the harbor. All right. So let's know this thing. It seems to be rolling away and jumping into the water very happily. See, just look at the movement of the ball. It merrily bounces, right? So what we come to know, wow, how the story opens up, and the setting is near a harbor where a boy is playing with his ball, and suddenly his ball keeps rolling and it reaches near the harbor and suddenly went into the water body. So he keeps very helplessly, he keeps watching his ball going down into the water body from where it cannot be retrieved, right? So what happens then? Let's read that. It seems to be rolling away and jumping into the water very happily, unmindful of the impact of the loss on the boy. So there a sharp contrast has been made here in the merrily bouncing movement of the ball, how the ball merrily bounces, in contrast, which is in sharp contrast to the sad and gloomy mood of the boy, right? So the poet makes no effort to console the boy, because he knew that no amount of consolation or nothing can convince the boy because of his loss, because the loss was so huge, right? Because he was not just mourning over the ball. He was not just, sad on the fact that he has lost his ball, but because ball is attached to so many past memories, his childhood memories, right? So that we are going to read. Now let us see a new one. He believes that nothing will pacify him, as he seems to be overwhelmed with grief. This loss seems to be upsetting him very immensely. The boy is so gloomy, his mood is so sad, just because he has lost something which was so close to his heart, which was so dear to him, right? Now, the poet doesn't want to convince the boy. He says, neither I'll try to convince him. Just because of the fact that no amount of consolation, nothing could pacify the boy, because the ball has so many memories attached to it. He is not talking about just the materialistic thing that is the ball here. But just because so many memories, so many childhood memories are attached to the ball, so the poet is of the opinion, he believes that money cannot buy happiness. So there is no point of consoling, there is no point of convincing this boy who is not going to get pacified, right? So what does this tell us? This makes us very clear that money cannot buy happiness. Materialistic things cannot buy happiness. You can buy things, you can buy material things with money, but it cannot buy that sense of belongingness. It cannot buy that sense of relief, that sense of inner satisfaction, isn't it? The poet doesn't want to convince the boy that his loss is irreparable, his loss is negligible, as the ball is something inexpensive. And why the ball is inexpensive? He was not just talking about that physical ball, that physical thing. He was talking about, he had those memories attached to the ball, right? That's why I told you that ball becomes a symbol, a metaphor in his life, right? So materialistic possessions are quite often lost in life. They cannot be substituted, right? So what is written here? Money cannot bring the lost things back. It can only buy new ones to replace them. So what does it mean? Money is only external. What does this show? That money is external. It can buy you some things, but it cannot buy your happiness. It cannot buy you that sense of belongingness, right? Once you have lost something or somebody who is near to your heart, who is close to your heart, you cannot buy that with the help of money. It can only buy new ones to replace them. The boy is getting the first-hand experiences. So the boy himself is getting first-hand experience of this particular thing, that losing is a part of life, and one has to go on in life, and one has to move on in life, right? So what happens here, what it feels like losing something dear to one's heart, and how one has to summon moral courage to be able to bear the loss and get reconciled to the fact of losing the possessions. So what does that mean? Even this is a very natural tendency among humans also. Once we lose something that is so close to our heart, we definitely get shattered, we completely get shattered. But we cannot stuck at that particular point of time, right? Even if you are sad at the fact of losing something or someone who is so close to your heart, or the things which are so close to your heart, you cannot keep stuck, right? You cannot keep yourself stuck. At least we have to stand up and move on in life. This is what the poet makes the reader aware of, right? The whole poem may be regarded as an extended metaphor. Definitely it's an extended metaphor, and here the ball has been used as a metaphor or a symbol of the childhood memories, right, attached to it. So for the materialistic possessions of a person, the loss of which is a painful experience, like we have in the case of boy here. Now we are going to read the poem. Let me tell you an interesting fact about the poem. This particular poem is written in one single stanza, but I have broken down some lines into smaller chunks for your better understanding. Let's have a look at that. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? First of all, as I always discuss literary devices while reading any poem, see, ball word has been repeated here, ball, here also, right? Merrily bouncing, you have literary device here also. What is the boy? First of all, see, B sound is getting repeated here. There is alliteration. In B sound. Got it? Then you see what? These two words are getting repeated. So there is another literary device which we call repetition. And same in these two words, another literary device that we have used here is what? Any guesses? It's anaphora. It's anaphora, right? When you see the repetition of a certain word at the beginning of stanza, first of all, see that two words are getting repeated, so there is repetition. At the same time, in the beginning of the stanza, in this consecutive two lines, a word is repeated, so we call it anaphora. So who has lost his ball? What is he to do? I saw it go. Merrily bouncing, to indicate happiness. So we have given a quality to something which is inanimate, right? So it shows ball has been personified as well. Just because we have given human attributes to something which is an inanimate object, right? Down the street and then merrily over, there it is in the water. So what does this stanza explains? This particular stanza explains the boy's grief. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? The boy, by this time, the boy has already lost his ball. What is he to do? What is he to do now? He feels so shattered. He's in a gloomy mood, right? But the ball is merrily bouncing down the street, and how it reaches the harbor and then finally into the water body. So there is a sharp contrast here. And ball has been personified to some extent. Seeing that the ball, the merrily bouncing of the ball, merry movement of the ball is completely unaware of the fact that it is completely unaware of the fact how boy feels so shattered at the loss of it, right? So remember this thing. Now let us have a look at it. The poet is talking about how a boy has lost his ball and he wants to know about him, and his reaction, because he has lost his ball, further he asks to himself to what this boy will do after losing the ball, right? What the boy is going to do once he has lost his loved possession. The poet has seen the ball going away from the harbor to the water body, and from where it could not be retrieved back, right? So he says that the ball was cheerfully jumping up and down. It was merrily bouncing down the street, and then it straight away went into the water from where it could not be retrieved. When the ball skipped from boy's hand, it went to the street, and then later on it fell into the water, right? Now literary devices, I told you, anaphora and repetition, where in the word what? What? Then we have assonance. Assonance where? Let us have a look. Boy now. O sound is getting repeated. So we have, and what is the meaning of assonance? Repetition of vowel sound within the word, within these two closely placed words. We have boy, we have now, we have lost, right? So then we have imagery throughout the poem, because when you are able to create mental images in your mind, whenever you are able to visualize a scene in which there is a ball which is merrily bouncing on down the street and then going into the water, and the boy is so shattered at the loss of his ball, definitely there is imagery in the poem, right? Now coming to the next stanza, let's read. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. So who says these lines? Who is the speaker? The poet believes that there is no use of pacifying the boy, there is no use of convincing the boy by saying that, oh, there are other balls and you can buy other balls with money. Because money can buy some other balls, but it cannot buy those memories which are attached to that particular ball, right? So an ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. There is a very, very important figure of speech that has been used here, shaking grief, which is, I'll write it here, shaking grief, transferred epithet. All right. Now, which is that literary device? We have also discussed the same even in our previous session, right, with the help of an example. So here what happens? Shaking grief. It is not the grief here which is being shaking. It is the ball. It is the boy who is shaken with grief, right? Who is shaken with grief. So we have used transferred epithet is a literary device in which an adjective is used with some noun or before a noun which it does not qualify normally, but what? I repeat, transferred epithet is a literary device in which adjective is placed before a noun which does not qualify, but with some other noun, right? So what happens generally here, the shaking, the grief is not shaking, it is the boy who is shaken with grief, right? So staring down all his young days into the harbor where, so just seeing that ball going into the harbor makes him feel that as if all the childhood memories have gone into water, right? And everything is vain now. His ball went, I would not intrude on him. I would not try to pacify him. I will not interfere in his thoughts, right? Because no amount of consolation can pacify this boy, right? So a dime, another ball is worthless. A dime, see, and that you can buy another ball with a dime. You can just pay in terms of money and then you can buy another ball, but that is quite impossible because you can buy another ball with the help of money, but you cannot buy those memories. You cannot buy back those beautiful childhood memories attached with the ball. Now he senses first responsibility, but by this particular time, the boy, through although in the eyes of other people, this incident would be insignificant, but for this particular boy, this is the point where he realizes his first sense of responsibility. And which is that sense of responsibility? He understands that loss is a part of life. It is inescapable, right? It is an indispensable part of life, and that we have to learn to move on in life. So no matter what. So there are some points in life where at some point of time we lose something or someone who is close to our heart, or with the things which are closer to our heart. But just keep mourning. If we keep mourning over the losses of those particular things, that is quite impossible. And this is how life is. Life goes on and things move on, right? Now, the poet says there is no use in consoling the boy by offering something to him, because no amount of things can pacify him. No amount of advice cannot pacify the boy just because he is mourning over the loss of that ball with which childhood memories are attached, right? Through this loss, the poet feels that the boy must learn some sense of responsibility and how understand, yes, how this is how life goes on and how to take care of his possessions. Literary device, repetition of the word ball. I have already told you this thing, that ball is a word which is being repeated throughout. So here also we have the word ball, and here also we have the ball, which keeps that there is repetition in the poem. All right, so please note down this thing. And let me tell you one more important thing. This particular poem has no fixed rhyme scheme. It is written in free verse, right? Remember, the poet says there is no use in consoling. I have already told you this thing. So there is no use of pacifying him just because he's already gloomy at the thought of losing his childhood memories. He sees as if not just the ball, he sees all those memories which have gone into water. Right, now the next one. In a world full of possessions, people will take balls will be lost always, little boy, and no one buys a ball back. Again, this is an example of alliteration. First of all, let me make it very clear to you. Money is external, very, very important. Money cannot buy happiness. It can just buy you things, but not the sense of belongingness. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes the epistemology of love, how to stand up. Epistemology, philosophy of life. It refers to philosophy of life. Just because the boy had inadequate knowledge about life, so he's learning more at the loss of, after the ball is lost, he's learning his sense of responsibility, and he's learning that this is how life is, and we lose things, we have things, and then we lose people, we lose things which are close to our heart, but we have to move on in life. How to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know and must know many days, how to stand up. It's just that we have to stand up and we have to move on. So this is a very important stanza, very, very important. Even this was asked in previous question paper, and this particular stanza was also asked in the previous year question paper in one of those sets. So please keep this thing in mind that this is a very important poem in terms of asking extract based questions. Right? So prepare accordingly. Now, the poet says that in this materialistic world, we lose some things in life, right? The balls represent the boy's possessions, including material things and relationships. Whether it's your relationship, whether it is somebody, or whether it is the most precious thing in life, the boy learns that such losses cannot be replaced with money. Through this loss, he understands an important truth of life. And what's that important truth? One must accept sorrows and learn to stand up again. So now, which are the literary devices that have been used in the poem? Let us look at that. Alliteration, use of the word P sound. I have already told you, no one buys a ball black, right? And then you see the word, the repetition of sound B, which indicates that there is alliteration in the poem. Then we have repetition and assonance, use of the vowel sounds, as we have already known, right? I have already shown you that. Now, let's see the theme of the poem, which is actually which has a very deeper meaning. Let's see what it says. It appears to be one of the surface, right? What do you see on the surface? Just the loss of a ball. But what is the underlying idea of the poem? The loss of what? The most loved possession, that is childhood memories, right? The poem narrates an incident in the life of a child when the ball is lost and how he cannot control himself and how he keeps mourning over the loss of his ball until he realizes that he has to stand up and move on in life, right? So the boy is so grief-stricken as it is his first loved possession that got lost. It is the first experience, and this was the time when he got his first-hand experience of losing something which is so precious to him, right? So leaves the boy alone instead of consoling him, because he wants the boy to learn that sense of responsibility and learn the true meaning of life, and how just losing becomes an important part of life, right? Now, the poem in fact deals with the philosophy of life, as we say, epistemology of loss. Got it? And is based on the idea that people possess a number of things, some of which get lost sometimes, but loss is inevitable, something which you cannot escape. It is a very important part, and one has to learn to move on eventually. Got it? So please go through this and try to understand. One must know how to put up with the loss. This is one of the most important thing, without losing heart and hope, because loss is something which happens eventually at last of something. So we should not carry that baggage of burden, right? We should not carry that baggage, and we should learn to move on in life. Now, what is that important message that the poet conveys through this beautiful poem? What John Berryman conveys through this beautiful poem? Let's look at this. So it gives us a very clear message that the process of learning the ways of the world started at a very young age, just like it happened in the case of boy, who at a very young age lost his ball, and there were so many memories attached to the ball. So that's why he was mourning over. When a young child loses a valuable possession, he or she is empowered, or you can say he's so overpowered with grief, just like the boy. However, the loss starts the journey towards maturity. So just because this was the first time when he lost something, so he gained a sense of responsibility that this is how life is, and we lose at some point of time. We have to bear the loss of something which is precious. So we have to learn. The child learns a lesson of how to be careful about possessions in this materialistic world. Got it? Moreover, if the child is not consoled and the lost object is not replaced with something, then what happened? The child gets a training of how to put up with the losses, just like it happened in the case of boy even. Got it? So please have a look at this now. The poem also conveys a beautiful message that one must be not be too emotionally attached to somebody or some materialistic things. And again, I'm telling you, it is not just the ball that he was attached to. The ball had a very wider meaning, just because the ball is a symbol of childhood memories. It symbolizes all those beautiful childhood memories to which the poet was attached to. A loss must not leave a person sorrow-stricken. One must know how to bear the loss bravely and move on in life. Got this thing? So please be very, very clear. Now let's have a look at the extract-based questions. This is the extract right in front of you in a world of possession. This was the question that was asked in the previous year question paper, right? So please have a look at it. Balls will be lost always. People will take, balls will be lost always, little boy. So what is the answer of this particular question? People will take balls, but money cannot buy happiness. You can take a ball, but you cannot buy those childhood memories. Now, the poet says that the money is external. What inference can be drawn from this particular statement? This is extremely important to understand, that money cannot buy you sense of belongingness. Money cannot buy you happiness. It can just buy you physical things, right? Remember this thing? So just like the boy, what happens? It only holds material value, and the loss of something meaningful like the boy's ball teaches him a very deeper lesson about loss that cannot be compensated through money. Got it? Now, next question. What is the poet's attitude towards material possessions? Is he indifferent, emotional, casual, or respectful? Earlier he was indifferent, right? So this is the most appropriate option. So we don't have to just, focus much on this, because this is just a very basic, very simple question which everybody should be in a position to answer, right? Next question. Identify the literary device used in money is external. Can you just tell me? I'm leaving a question for you. Do this in your homework, as this is extremely important. As I just told you, money cannot buy happiness. How would you say, or which literary device is being justified in this case, that money is external? Remember this thing? Now let's have a look at the extract number 2. What is the boy now who had lost his ball? What is he to do? I saw it go merrily bouncing. What does this extract show about boys' feelings? Let's have a look. He feels helpless and grief-stricken at the loss of his ball. This is a question that can be asked in the form of a extract-based question. Why does the poet use the word merrily for the ball? Because the ball keeps merrily bouncing. So ball has been personified, because merrily is the word which has been attached to the ball. It shows that the ball was happily bouncing down the street, and how it went into the river, forgetful of the gloomy mood of the boy. Who is the speaker of these lines? Exactly, just tell me. What is the boy now? Exactly this poet, right? The poet is the speaker only, the narrator. Now, the poet seems to have indicated merry bouncing of the ball to create a sense of rhythm, support the happiness of the experience, contrast with the dejected feeling of the boy, indicate the cheerful mood of the boy. Now, as we have come to this question now, but I have already given you the answer about this question already in 2-3 slides before. So this, without thinking much, you just have to tick this option here. It is in deep contrast to the sad and dejected feelings of the boy. Now, let's understand short questions which are expected to be, questions like these are expected to be there in your exam. Why did the poet not console the grief-stricken boy when he lost the ball? Because he thought that no amount of consolation, no amount of money can buy those things which were attached to his childhood memories. So that's why he says nothing can console the boy, and that's why I will not try to pacify him. So he must learn the sense of responsibility. He must learn how to cope with the loss of losing something valuable in life, right? So consoling him or giving money to or another ball would not replace, just because it is not the ball that matters, it is the memories that are attached to it that matters, right? Now, the loss of the ball is a lesson to the boy. Definitely the whole story, the whole poem is all about. Let's see, the boy learns that loss is an inevitable part of life, and materialistic things cannot buy happiness or the sense of responsibility or the sense of belongingness, right? The experience teaches him the lesson of responsibility, resilience, and maturity at the same time. Got it, everybody? I hope this is all clear. Shall we proceed towards another question? Just have a look at this now. What does the poet mean by the phrase, and no one buys a ball back? Even though you get another ball by paying the next time, but can you just buy those memories back if your possession has some memories attached to it, right? Even sometimes what happens, you are being gifted with some pen on your birthday by your loved ones or by some near and dear ones. So would you love the pen more, or would you love those memories which were attached to the pen? It's like you would remember that this was given to me by my grandfather, my granny, or my uncle, my maternal uncle. So it is the feelings that matter, right? So same question. The point means that some losses cannot be reversed. You can buy the same pen, but you cannot buy the same memories that were attached to the pen. Who gave it to you? What was the special occasion on which it is given? Things like that. Now, the whole poem teaches us about loss and responsibility, why it is related to life. It is all related to life only. Let's see, the poem is relatable because everyone experiences loss. The boy's reaction mirrors our initial sadness when we lose something, but eventually we have to learn to move on in life, and this is how life goes on, right? Just like in the case of poem as well. What epistemology of loss? This is a very important question. Let us look at this. The epistemology of loss in the poem refers to the understanding and having adequate knowledge gained through first-hand experience specifically. The poem shows that when the boy loses his ball, he learns that loss is a natural and unavoidable thing in life, unavoidable part in life, and that he has to bear that loss, and that he has to, just with the passage of time, he'll gain maturity. This has taught, this was a very valuable lesson that has taught him the lessons of morality and maturity at the same time, right? So the boy learns how to accept loss, control his emotions, how to stand up and move on in life. Now, a very important question from this lesson. Now, let's have a look. In the whole poem, Berryman explores the themes of loss, growing up, we just discussed these adjectives in the previous question as well, and the feeling of transformation. Mandela also experienced loss of freedom and suffering alongside his countrymen during his growing years on the basis of race and color. Very, very important and very interesting question that covers two important and core lessons of your textbook, right? So what happens? Let's see. Two lessons, one theme, freedom, sense of responsibility. This is how in the whole poem the poet shows how a young boy learns an important lesson when he loses something, just like he has lost his most important, most loved possession, that is the ball. The ball here represents the boy's childhood happiness in possession. So same is the case with Mandela. Just because they did not enjoy basic rights, they did not have freedom of speech, what happens? So Nelson Mandela experienced a great loss of freedom just because of apartheid. He and his people suffered discrimination and injustice due to their race, right? So the suffering helped Mandela how to grow into a very strong and responsible man, right? This loss of freedom taught Mandela how to become a transformed man, how to transform his personality from being a timid to a very rebellious person. Likewise, this loss of the ball taught this boy to become more mature in life, to realize that sense of responsibility. So this is how these two lessons are revolving around one common theme, and that is freedom. So I hope this is quite understood to all of you. My dear students, please go through each and every question that we are discussing in the class. Why does the poet say, I would not intrude on him? What does this reveal about the poet's attitude and the central message of the poem? So this poem talks more about the message of the poem and the sense of responsibility that the boy has learnt over that period of time after that loss of the ball. So please go through this answer as well. This will definitely teach you how to write effective answers in your upcoming board examination. Now, we are going to have a smaller recap of the topic. Please have a look at that. So, we have covered his first flight, right? The black aeroplane. What are the key takeaways of these lessons? Let's see that. You should understand courage is we should be self-reliance. We should be self-reliant. We should be confident. And a feeling of self-belief should be there. Now, coming to the poem, how to tell wild animals we need to understand setting, tone as well, right? Features of different wild animals. Literary devices as well. Right? Coming to the last poem that we just completed, the Bowl poem by John Berryman. What are the key points? Loss of the most loved possession. Sense of responsibility. And that money is external. And the epistemology of loss. And let me tell you that this How to Tell Wild Animals is written by Caroline Wells. So I hope, dear students, you are able to understand these takeaways, major takeaways of today's session. Not only this, after intense research, I have prepared a set of important and expected questions besides all these questions which have been presented to you on screen. So in order to get all those questions, please tap the link given in the description box and the comment section that will redirect you to the PW free batch. So please join the batch and start studying from there and get wonderful marks in your exams. And for more sessions, for more upcoming units, please stay tuned with us. So I really wish everyone the very best of luck. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening ahead.